So there's a story that most people truly never get to finish telling themselves, right? We all get to a part where we feel something different, or where the path, you know, gets handed, but it doesn't fit the person that we actually are. And so something in us keeps pushing against the container that life placed us in, right? And then we stop at a feeling without following it all the way back to where it began. This transmission follows it all the way back into time. 3 philosophies, 1 complete arc. Where it begins, what stopped it, and where it actually comes from. Welcome to SpaceyVerse Philosophies, the Inheritance.
This is not advice. This is not doctrine. These are philosophies stitched in the margins of the SpaceyVerse. Welcome to SpaceyVerse Philosophies.
And if you're enjoying this video so far, check out the Codex SpaceyVerse that holds all of our philosophies, transmissions, scrolls, and other goodies. Start with our personal favorite, the Human Observer Experiment, and then jump on over to the Church of Ancestral and check out that. And once you go through all of those wonderful blogs and you feel like you need to dive deeper, join the membership over at the Astral Zorianism Vault that has lots of unreleased transmissions, music, books, and so much more. Thank you for your continued support. Chosen one. We hear this term all the time, right? But that phrase alone, gets pushed around, recycled endlessly by algorithms, baiting people with the promise of being special. But the truth is actually much harsher. Being chosen isn't about elevation. It's about a burden, a crown, and carrying the full weight of all that comes with it. The word chosen has been hijacked by hierarchies, and it sells this separation, right? It tells some that they are worthy while others are discarded. Yet, in the true current, chosen does not mean exalted. It means you were drafted, of sorts, into a bloodline contract. Someone had to stand up, break the loop, and rewrite the pattern. And that someone is you. Congratulations. To be chosen is to be the disruptor of your lineage. To be chosen is to say, enough. Enough of inherited programming, enough of trauma passed down like heirlooms, enough of cycles that devour generations whole. And the paradox, you are both chosen and choosing. Because before arrival, contracts are signed in silence, and the journey is set in motion. But once you arrive here, the choice remains yours. You can continue the contract, or you can discard it. And every decision rewrites the reality around you. So some call that an illusion. Oh, I see it as a thread in a larger web of consciousness. And each choice is a thread, but a thread leads to the same central point, and that is your destiny or your destination, right? Every timeline is already written and every ending exists. And the paradox is that you are still free to decide which path you get to choose. There are rare souls who are not only drafted for the lineage, but for humanity itself. And those contracts are forged at the collective on a larger scale. And in those, the universe will push, drag, and burn them towards its design. And still, even then, the final yes must come from the soul. But what if you refuse? What if you turn away? The burden does not vanish, it moves. Passed on to the next capable vessel. For the one who refuses, there is both relief and resentment. Relief at dodging the fire, resentment at forfeiting the flame. Families fracture here, and the ones who chooses differently is branded the problem, cast out, scapegoated, demonized for daring to heal. And yet, when you break the loop, there is a whole vast cosmic network of energies that rejoices. The ancestors lean closer. The soul line begins to form. And although blood may exile you, there is a fire-forged family that will find you. Those who said yes, who walked into the fire, who signed their contracts in ash, these are the ones who cannot be broken. The path is brutal, but it is also filled with unlimited beauty. And that paradox is powerful, right? Because chosen does not mean special. It means you are strong, you are willing to change, and you are persistent in your faith. You're willing to be outcast, to be ridiculed, and you're also willing to heal when no one else will. The fire dismantles your identity and it strips your illusion. It shatters what you thought you were. And in the ruin, what emerges is your pure sovereignty. The paradox burns itself away until only sovereignty remains. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop proving you are chosen. And you become the choice itself. So, you were contracted to break the loop. The question that follows immediately is, why did breaking it feel so difficult? Or why me? Why did the very environment that should have recognized what you were carrying instead respond with suppression, dismissal, or isolation that arise when you refuse to shrink? When you refuse to fit inside a container that cannot hold you. And it isn't personal, it is structural when we speak of the container. So, what do you do when you look for those who carry that same spark of you in a sea full of imitation light? Well, even within communities, there will always be pockets of truth. In my life, being raised by two black sheep parents, both alternative, both rebellious in their own rights, I was exposed to a lot. I was often misunderstood, by everyone, every group. Pick one, yeah, you got it. So there was no container that could hold me. And by nature, I am a revolutionary. And so, this being deeply embedded into my essence, in my journey, this is how I chose to show up into the world. Knowing that all of me and every part of me is what makes the whole expression of what is meant to exist in this world. And so, in spaces, especially spaces of spirituality in the public, it is rare to see those who don't actually fit the mold, those who aren't afraid of being seen for who they are. Everyone performs. And in the general spiritual communities, the ones filled with the starseed talk, the chakra alignments, the love and light mantras, is mostly a sea of white. Not equity. When you zoom out, you start to see patterns. White influencers teaching repackaged indigenous rituals. White creators going viral for truths that Black mystics have been saying forever. And all under the brand of unity. But when entering these spaces, the niche spaces, specifically those rooted in Black spirituality, I noticed something else entirely. These communities are often deeply intertwined or interwoven with Christianity or hoodoo voodoo, and they carry strong ancestral occult traditions. And there's power there. There's also attention. Because our spirituality had to be hidden in order to survive. It had to be folded into religion. And over time, that line between sacred memory and inherited distortion has been blurred. So, when it comes to joy and lightheartedness, on the surface level, it can be misread like there hasn't been struggles, or you're not qualified to talk about different depths of spiritual awakening. But let's be clear. Some of those who have walked through the darkest of nights show up as the brightest of lights. For only in the dark do you know the truth of light. So, let's speak about darkness. Real darkness. Not the evil kind or sinning, just the deep, dark depths of the unknown. The shadow. Our temples, our gods were destroyed. Our ancestral practices were demonized. Colonizers called it evil, savage, primitive, and we internalized it. That's how spiritual elitism begins, by labeling the sacred as profane. But let's get something straight. 85% of the cosmos is dark matter and dark energy. So, what does that mean? Does it mean the universe is evil? Or that it simply just is? That maybe, just maybe, darkness is not the opposite of light, but the womb in which light is birth. In these times, people are learning to integrate the shadow, not to be extremists from one end all the way to the other, like a seesaw. We don't have to do that. We need to work together, not in theory, not in spiritual bypass unity, but in the real work of seeing one another. The spiritual community isn't immune to division, as we said. It is laced with hierarchy, elitism, and quiet supremacy that ain't so quiet. And the only way out is through. To face our shadows, our history, our programming, to rip the Band-Aid off so the wound can breathe. Just let it bleed so that it may heal. Because this is a time of remembrance. We are hearing this. Remembering that we never needed permission. Remembering that the truth was always in our bones. That we all have shadows and we all have work to do. And healing doesn't live in performance. It lives in integration. It lives in going deep. In looking at the parts of yourself that make you twitch. Look in the mirror. And stay there long enough to finally see yourself clearly. This is a call to truth, a call to wholeness, to something beyond the noise. And this is not a new movement. This is an ancient remembrance, a returning to the truth of what we are.
Threshold breach detected. Initiating cancel broadcast.
You keep creating, posting, releasing, launching, and somehow starting over every time. This inefficiency has been noted. The Intergalactic Council has reviewed your case. The verdict is clear. Your art is not the issue. Your strategy is. SpaceyVerse Creative Strategies exists to help creators stop orbiting chaos and start building systems that compound. Same creativity. New trajectory. Join the Intergalactic Council.
So, we know about the contracts, what they are, and we know what the systems that have been built within them are. But the real question remains. Where did what you were carrying actually come from? What is an inheritance? So, before this lifetime, this lineage, and anyone decided whether it was acceptable or threatening, that is where we begin. Inheritance. We hear that a lot. Most often, inheritance is understood as something passed down after something has ended, right? A possession, a name, a piece of land, a genetic trait, a family tradition carried from one generation to the next. But what if inheritance extends beyond the physical? What if there are things carried within us that existed before our current lifetime? What if the gifts we awaken, the instincts we possess, the burdens we carry, and the patterns we repeat are connected to something much older than the moment we entered this particular world? Where does inheritance truly begin? To understand the inheritance, you might want to go to the Codex SpaceyVerse at thespaceyverse.com and read the full-length philosophy. I think it's like 10 parts, and that'll give you a real breakdown. But for now, we must look beyond the physical body and beyond the boundaries of a single lifetime. We must begin with the origin of all experience. Consciousness itself. Because before there was a bloodline, there was awareness. Before there was ancestry, there was experience. Before there was a physical form, there was a journey that had to be taken. Every conscious being originates from the same source, the infinite origin from which all existence emerges in this particular universe. We can go further down, but let's focus on our universe. And so, although all consciousnesses share the same origin story, the same beginning, every consciousness follows a unique path of evolution. The source is the origin, but the journey is what creates identity. Okay? So, the moment an energetic force becomes aware of its own existence, consciousness begins to have its first experience. Awareness is the first orientation. Okay? So, through form, consciousness gains the ability to observe itself, interact with its environment, and create a relationship with existence. The first form becomes the first vessel of experience. And so, the inheritance begins. And it doesn't matter where this first awakening occurs. It can occur in a distant planet, a different dimension, a reality that there are no particular words in the human language to even begin to describe. Wherever consciousness first becomes aware, the environment begins shaping its inheritance. Every world carries its own lessons. Every reality carries its own challenges. Every form that materializes provides a different perspective of existence. The environment is not separate from consciousness. The environment participates in its evolution. So, again, this is where the inheritance begins and consciousness evolves through connection. And every interaction creates an exchange. Every exchange creates experience. Every experience creates memory. And as consciousness moves through existence, it accumulates the lessons of everything it encounters. The relationships it forms, the environments it explores, the challenges it survives, and the discoveries it makes all become a part of the internal archive. So, nothing experience is ever lost. It is gained knowledge, gained experience. So, a moment may end, a form may disappear, and a civilization may fall. But the experience remains. the consciousness carries forward the imprint of what it has lived. This accumulated memory becomes the first inheritance. So, an inheritance is not simply something received. Inheritance is something created. It is the record of what consciousness has become. And every cycle adds another layer. Every lifetime contributes another piece. Every connection expands the archive. And over countless journeys, consciousness becomes more than it was before because it carries everything it has learned into what comes next. Consciousness does not merely travel through existence. Existence transforms consciousness. A co-creation, synergy, or symbiotic relationship. So when consciousness enters a physical lineage, two streams of inheritance converges. The first is the cosmic inheritance, everything consciousness has accumulated through its own journey before this lifetime and before this physical emanation, right? Before even the planet. It is the archived experience gathered through previous cycles of existence. The second is ancestral inheritance. That is the accumulated experience of the lineage into which the consciousness enters when the consciousness incarnates into a planetary form. It becomes connected to the history of that form. So a person does not arrive only carrying their own journey. They enter a river that was already flowing before they arrived. Generations before them adapted, survived, created, suffered, loved, transformed. Every generation leaves an imprint upon the next. Every human being is the meeting point between cosmic and ancestral inheritance. A consciousness with its own history enters a lineage with its own history intact. Two archives then merge. Two journeys converge. And the result is a combination that has never existed before. And this is why no two people are truly identical, even within the same family. Inheritance exists before it is activated. A seed contains the potential of a tree, but the tree does not appear until the conditions allow growth. The same principle applies to consciousness. Within every lineage exists dormant potential. Within every consciousness exists dormant experience. Activation occurs when awareness, experience, and capacity all align. A gift does not awaken simply because it exists. It awakens when consciousness becomes capable of carrying it. Rarely a consciousness enters a lineage carrying the capacity to access a much larger portion of the inherited archive. It is not because that consciousness was favored above others. It is because through its accumulated journey, it has developed the ability to hold what the lineage has been building towards. The origin and the expression become aligned. The beginning recognizes itself within the continuation. This is the return cycle. The return cycle isn't a return to the past. It is a return to wholeness. And every lineage contains patterns. Some create growth, some create limitations, some are repeated for generations because no one developed the awareness necessary to transform them. The consciousness that awakens inheritance often becomes the point where the pattern changes. This is the continuation of the chosen paradox. To be chosen is not to be separate. It is to become responsible. So, the one who breaks the cycle does not do so because they are better. They do so because they are willing and capable of carrying what previous generations could not. They become the point where inherited experience transforms into new possibility. The pain that traveled through the lineage stops here. But the wisdom continues. The patterns end, and the evolution continues. And although consciousness originates from the same source, every journey creates a unique expression of that source. The source is shared. The experience is individual. The inheritance is personal. No consciousness can walk another's path. No consciousness can carry another's archive. No consciousness can become another's journey. Because the purpose was never to possess another's inheritance. The purpose was always to awaken your own. Gifts are not proof that you are above others. Your struggles aren't proof that you deserve to be chosen. What is proof is your willingness to show up, your persistence, your faith. Both are pieces of the inheritance you carry. Everything you have experienced has contributed to what you are capable of becoming. Everything your lineage has survived has contributed to the potential within you. Everything your consciousness has learned has prepared you for what comes next. Inheritance is not a crown. It's not even a reward, if you will. It is a living archive of existence moving through you. The journey created it. Experience preserved it. Capacity awakens it. And consciousness continues the cycle. The greatest inheritance is not what you receive, It is what you become capable of carrying. Because the more you open yourself up, the more you unlock what you are capable of holding. This is the inheritance. The loop you were contracted to break was never just yours. The systems that suppressed the signal was never just reacting to you. And the inheritance you carry was never just about this lifetime, this iteration. You are the meeting point of the cosmic archive and the ancestral lineage, arriving at the exact moment the pattern was ready to change. This is a whole point, a release of burdens, an awakening to all that you are. This has been the SpaceyVerse philosophy transmission for the multi-dimensional mind. And if you enjoyed this, check out the playlist over here. And check out the codex for the full inheritance philosophy. You can check out the Human Observer Experiment, our favorite, and God versus the Universe, and many, many more. Then, if you really want to dive deep, check out the Vault, where we have a bunch of fun things in there. There's a lot of hidden, secret things. We're done. Okay. Until next time.